Hello, friends. I'm Kanchan from Akulmek Technologies, and you are welcome to our show, Great Kings of India. Today, we have eminent historian Mrs. Binda Paranjpe, who is working in Banaras Hindu University. So, welcome to the show, Binda ji. How are you today?
Great.
Bintaji, we have discussed Chalukya King Pulkesh in our last episode. And today we are discussing about Kalyani Chalukya, who were much later than Pulkeshan. And it is said that Vikramaditya, the king about whom we will be discussing today, so who displayed a great military he was a great military general. He displayed great military skills. So we'll be discussing, and I would like to know more about this great king of India.
Sure. As you have already connected it with the name of the dynasty, the Badami Chalukyas. And these Chalukyas from Kalyani, they also trace their origin from the Badami Chalukyas. So they're linked, they're connected. But the exact link is not yet established. So it is the eulogy of the kings that connects them to the earlier rulers who were the empire builders of this southern part of India. Now, this Chalukyan king Vikramaditya VI, because as you know that this name is very popular in ancient India. Many rulers, either they were having their first name as Vikramaditya or they took the title Vikramaditya as a special title to show that the military strength and valor in them. So they used to call them, because Vikramaditya means those who are like sons in the victory in the war. So, very radiant kind of career. And Vikramaditya VI of the Chalukyan dynasty, I think the name Vikramaditya suits him very well if we see his military career. So to begin with, we can say that how did he become a king? Like we have seen about many other rulers of ancient India, even Vikramaditya VI had a little problem in becoming the paramount ruler of that dynasty. It did not come to him very easily. He had to fight against the other claimants, and then he could acquire the throne. He could do that because of very important two reasons. One, certainly he had the dynastic lineage, so he was one of the very prospective claimants to the throne. But other, when he was a prince, he had started his military career and he had proved his skill, his commandership. And because of that, there must have been a lot of generals who were in support of this king, because they had seen that he is a very powerful, mighty, he has all the potential to become the heir to this great kingdom. So before he could become the king, he already had definitely some military strength on his side. And that's how he became the king. Now, after becoming the king, the condition of this Deccan was quite volatile, because Rashtrakutas had declined, and on the decline of the Rashtrakutas, the Chalukyas, this Kalyani Chalukyas had emerged. But Rashtrakutas were not completely finished. So obviously some of the aspirant heirs were also trying to regain their lost position. Then on the western side, and we have seen that western side of India is very, very significant because of the international trade. So Kadambas were there. And on the western side of Karnataka, just adjacent to the kingdom of Kalyani, the Hoysalas were there. On the eastern side, as we have already seen earlier when we talked about the legacy of Pulakeshin, the Vengi Chalukyas were there, who were towards the mouth of Godavari. And again, a very significant land geographical location because of the eastern sea. On the southern side, a very powerful kingdom of the Cholas were there. And one of the mightiest rulers of the Chola kingdom, Kulothunga Chola, was contemporary of Vikramaditya. On the northern side, the Paramaras had emerged as a very powerful kingdom. So for Vikramaditya, it was not very easy to maintain his superiority in Deccan, hold all the vast territory under control. But something very interesting is that all this turmoil was put to an end right at the beginning of his career.
Okay.
And that shows how powerful he was.
Yes, and I think he led a successful military campaign as far as modern Bihar and Bengal. So I would like to ask you, what is the impact of this particular king in southern military, or how good he was a general? As I agree that he has been facing lot of powerful empires at his time, which was surrounded his empire. But then, what is the impact of all this military and political campaign of Vikramaditya during that point of time?
Yeah, I mean, see, there are two ways in which the kings, they managed these um, constant tensions which were there on different boundaries of the kingdom. Sometimes it used to be by the direct military attack. Sometimes by having some kind of a collaboration with some other powers who are on your side. And then singling out a particular enemy and attack. Now, this kind of policy he used while he was fighting against the Cholas, or even partly against the Pandyas. Then there is another way that is more of diplomacy. So you develop some friendly alliances, you develop some family relations. We can see in case of Vikramaditya, he had taken queens from so many kingdoms surrounding his own seat of power. Now, that certainly must have been for these kinds of political alliances, because in ancient India, this was a standard practice that when a political alliance is met with, then that was consolidated further by having the marital relation. So, if we see the queens of Vikramaditya and different locations from there had come to the uh, kingdom of Vikramaditya or to the royal palace of Vikramaditya, we know that he must have been a very good negotiator. And that's how, this is one of the rarest cases in ancient India that a ruler could rule for a very long time, almost half a century. Really,
Right,
we do not have much examples of similar kind in ancient India,
right,
because the political situation was always so troublesome.
right,
Different kingdoms were emerging, and any ambitious ruler, what they used to do is that they used to form alliances with the maybe some weaker rulers, maybe some rulers who are on their side because of the family relation, and then used to try to acquire maximum land under their one umbrella, one control.
right,
Vikramaditya succeeded in maintaining it for 50 years.
right.
And that definitely shows that for all these years, it must not have been only through the military power. It's not possible. No
Yes,
king can keep fighting for 50
yes,
years.
right.
So fights was one part of it, military conquest was one part of it, but diplomacy must have been very, very effective.
Yes. So actually, at this point of time, I would like to ask you that there are two aspects when we are talking about any king. One is a successful king has to be great general, like we see about Harshvardhan, or we see Bindusar or Ashoka for that matter. Then other side is keeping the kingdom intact, keeping people happy by good administration, looking after of people needs, and becoming popular among subject. So on these parameter, how you would rate Vikramaditya 6 of this Chalukya dynasty?
A very good question. If we see what kind of administration this king promoted, the kingdom was very systematically divided into provinces. And something which is very interesting for ancient India, and especially these days when we are talking about the feminist history, when we are talking about the role of women in different historical periods, I think Vikramaditya's period is one of the best periods that we can quote for ancient India, because many of his queens were given the responsibility of different provinces of his kingdom. Now, that is something so worth paying attention to. There are different reasons for that. One, that establishes a more close connect between the king and the ruler. Because king in his physical self cannot be there everywhere in the kingdom. But then who could be the next to the king? Obviously the queens and princesses. So if he had so many of his queens participating actively in the administration of different provinces of his kingdom, that shows one very important aspect of ancient Indian polity, where the kings are advised to pay attention to the needs of the people. In modern terms, if we consider it, it will be like establishing a direct connect between the ruler and the ruled. And I think this was very evident in this period, when we can see so many queens there discharging the duties of administrators. Other than that, if we see what kind of ministers he had, most of them, they were very learned people. So obviously such people have a respect amongst the people amongst whom they are supposed to be working, for their scholarship, for their learning, for their knowledge. So their word will be respected. And because they would be knowing different rules of polity, they would accordingly advise the king what should be done in certain situations. So I think this must have been also one of the reasons that he could rule for such a long period of time. And we don't see much unrest from any corner of his kingdom, other than his own brother, who became ambitious and who wanted to usurp the throne. In royal families, such kind of tensions was very common. But amongst the people whom he was ruling, he was trying to establish a good connect through his queens and very worthy, very knowledgeable ministers that he had. Other than that, if we see, now here I would like to quote that we have very nice sources for the study of the rule of this king and different provincial activities which were going on by way of number of inscriptions. We are very lucky to have a huge corpus of inscriptions of the time of the rule of Vikramaditya VI. And those inscriptions tell us how these queens used to discharge their duty, how they used to promote education, how they used to promote learning, how they used to promote scholarship in their regions by giving donations to the temples, to the mathas, to different acharyas, the religious teachers. And in ancient India, we should remember one thing. When we are talking about religious institutions, it is not just for the rituals or some kind of a spiritual activity. That certainly was there, and that was the primary activity. But most of these places used to be places of learning. So when we see that different rulers, when they're promoting religious institutions, giving donations to the learned Brahmins, like in case of Vikramaditya, we have seen that he established 500 or more Tamilian Brahmins in his territory. And it is not because they were Tamilians, it is because they were well versed in the Vedic knowledge. So when they are established in his own kingdom, they are given lands to settle, which means through them, the king is attempting to spread the knowledge of the Vedic culture in his territory.
Okay.
So such kind of activity must have generated respect amongst the population, amongst the people whom he ruled, and that gave him a big support. This is what I feel very strongly.
Okay.
Another source of information is a very nice, very classic Sanskrit text.
Mhm.
It is called Vikramanka Devacharit.
Mhm.
So we have in India, we have a tradition of biographies of the king, and Harshavardhana's biography is very famous. It is written by Banabhatta, Harshacharit, one of the best masterpieces of Sanskrit literature.
Right.
Vikramanka Devacharit also is one of such texts.
Mhm.
And that is written almost like giving a biography of Vikramaditya VI. So we know that what activities this king was involved in.
Mhm.
But that is not just the thing. If we see the quality of Sanskrit and the author, Vikramaditya patronized this scholar. He was a scholar in his court. Like Banabhatta was adorning the court of Harshavardhan, we can see Bilhana was one of the gems, jewels of the court of Vikramaditya VI. Now, who this Bilhana was? He was a Sanskrit Pandit far away from Kashmir.
Mhm. Okay.
And for some reason, he had to leave Kashmir and he was seeking patronage. And by patronage, what we mean is that somebody who would appreciate his scholarship, somebody who would recognize his knowledge of Sanskrit. And when he crossed through the whole of northern area of India and came to the court of Vikramaditya VI, then he mentions it that I didn't get any other scholar to appreciate my scholarship than this king.
Right.
And
So it
also
was
the
actually, yeah, actually it was so great to know that we have a king who believe in women right, who's feminist, and it gives a lot of boost to like somebody who really think about in these lines actually. Now, with the discussion which our viewers has come to know that he was a great general, he was also able administrator, and he created that kind of atmosphere in the kingdom, and he ruled maybe half a century or maybe few years more. Now he patronized the he took care of the cultural aspect of that particular part in India. Now I would like to ask you, what is the impact of his era uh, to I mean, what in other ways, what the legacy he has left for all Indians?
nice. But just before that, I would like to add one more thing because we are connecting it with the earlier rulers that we have discussed also, like Harshavardhan and Pulakeshin. Even Vikramaditya, he went beyond the frontiers of India to establish his relations with the foreign rulers. So he had a very close, friendly relationship with the ruler of Sri Lanka.
Okay.
Now that is so important because for India's trade with Southeast Asia, also the Arab trade, which was by then very prosperous on the western side of India, Sri Lanka was very important. And the Tamil country in which Vikramaditya was trying to penetrate into and have his conquest on the southern side, though he did not succeed much, and Tungabhadra River became the boundary between these two mighty kingdoms, the kingdom of the Cholas and kingdom of Vikramaditya VI. But see the diplomacy, that beyond the Tamil country is Singhaladesh, that is Sri Lanka. And a king from the Deccan is establishing a friendly relation with him. So I think this kind of a diplomatic vision that this king has shown is very important. And that also can be seen as a legacy.
Right.
Because we also have got future kings who were constantly trying to establish contacts with the Southeast Asian islands. So I think Vikramaditya VI can be seen as one of the links in these kinds of connection of India and the spread of Indian culture beyond the frontiers of India, and Indians having very close association with Southeast Asia. In the field of scholarship, as I was telling you, one certainly is Billanu, but otherwise also he himself was well versed in poetics. In fact, we get a very interesting detail about his learning, what the king himself had learned. He was a very learned person. He had learned scripts, he had learned Sanskrit language, he had learned poetics, and obviously, because he was a prince, he must have got the training into statecraft also. But this is very interesting that he was well versed in reading and writing, because he was well versed in scripts. Now, such kind of data we don't get very often in ancient India. So that can be seen as one of the very important ideal of a king that was followed, that the king being a learned person. In his court, there was another scholar. His name was Vigyaneshwar. And he wrote a commentary called Mitakshara on one of the Smritis, Yagyavalkya Smriti. Now, what is the importance of this? Because Smriti literature, that is the source for law for Indians. Do's and don'ts, privileges and duties of people in different walks of life. Kings, ministers, queens, prince, ordinary people, people of different, like the Kshatriyas will be there, Vaishyas will be there, traders will be there, craftsmen will be there, for all of them. And now look, the king is promoting a scholar to write a commentary. Now, why the commentaries are written? Usually the commentaries are written because there are a lot of legal codes which need to be restated for the times in which those rules are to be applied. Now that also shows the vision of the king, that he is promoting this activity. Vigyaneshwar was his court scholar, and he was writing a text on Yagyavalkya Smriti, Mitakshara. And to tell you further, that today, I mean, when in the British period, when Indians had to form their own laws, Mitakshara was also taken as one of the most important sources, and especially in issues related to women. So that is. Secondly, his building activities. We have got number of towns which came up during this period, and Vikramaditya himself was responsible for making these cities grow. And what we call as present Bijapur, that was Vijayanagar, that was established as a new township by Vikramaditya. Kalyani was one of the most famous town of the period. Vigyaneshwar talks about it, that no capital like Kalyani, no ruler like Vikramaditya exists in contemporary India. That's what boastfully he talks about his patron. But to a large extent, it is true. He constructed reservoirs of water, one of the most important activity for the welfare of the people. Of course, temples were constructed, forts were constructed. So a lot of construction activity that took place. And that has remained even till today. We can see many of the temples, many of these structures, even today. So we can say that this is a ruler who has contributed so immensely in so many ways to Indian culture.
Yes, when you mentioned that he encouraged to do a commentary or write a commentary of the state proceeding. So that is quite amazing. It is something like proceedings of parliament on daily basis, which is being written. So it's quite amazing, and it is so wonderful to know about this particular king. And I think many people may not be knowing the contribution of Vikramaditya VI, who is from Kalyani Chalukya dynasty. So it was so lovely to really listen about
Can
this.
I add just two, three more things
Yes,
because they're
yes,
very
yes.
significant for our viewers. In ancient India, we had different calendar reckonings, and some rulers, they had the reckoning in their name. So we have got Chalukya Vikram era also, and that continued as you were talking about the legacy. The
Mhm.
era is a very important legacy
Right.
because the calendar reckoning in the name of that king.
Oh,
Or he also created feeding houses, like on the banks of Tungabhadra. To a temple, he gave donation for feeding to the people, the river farers there. Or his queen was assisting him in the capital city where the king himself is administering. Now, this is again a legacy where you are um, giving so much of importance to the queens who would participate actively in the administration. And we can see that in the Chalukyan dynasty, the further rulers also they continued with this, and the queens were very important.
okay. So it was so
So
wonderful to
I think
talk to you,
these are
Bindaji, and to know the finer points of the personality and the administration of and about the great general Vikramaditya, the sixth of
six.
Chalukya, Kalyani Chalukya dynasty. So we'll meet again with some other profile of a great king of India in our next episode. Till then, bye bye. Take care.
Bye bye. Namaste.